Are there some persons here who were visiting the last time I was here? A few. Okay. I don't know if you can make the connection between Bhagavad Gita and Great Expectations, but we're going to try. Now, those of you that are from America, you know what the novel Great Expectations is, and those of you from India, do you know what that is?
Charles Dickens.
No. Okay. We'll start with Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, there's 18 chapters, and one of the concluding messages that Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18. Those of you from India, you know this one. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Na Sochati Nakanksati Samak Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. It's a verse where Krishna is describing someone who understands who they are in a deeper sense beyond anything that's temporary. The eternal spark of life within. The Atma. They know that's who they are. So there's this other, your light's on. There's this other, no, he's got his
flash was on.
He had his flashlight on in my face, so I was. So, we have a body, and we have a subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego, and sometimes relate with the body, the gross body, sometimes the thoughts and feelings within the mind, sometimes the loftiness of ideas and philosophy, and live in that world. Those are three planes of consciousness, and then there's this plane of consciousness that's who we really are. The soul, the spark of life within, animating everything. And the whole of Bhagavad Gita is to bring us, the whole of the vast body of literature of the Vedas is to bring one to that position. Whether it's, whatever the branch of knowledge is. Medicine, architecture, music, history, science, in different divisions, etc., etc. The vast body of the Vedas deals with different branches of knowledge, and they're all targeted towards one thing: understanding who you are, and being fixed in that consciousness, and living a life that's in harmony with the laws of nature, and at the same time, higher consciousness. So that's Bhagavad Gita's message. And na sochati, na kanksati. It's a symptom. So it means neither hankering or lamenting, not having expectations for material happiness or lamentation when some object of happiness that's temporary disappears. Whatever that is. It's temporary. And those things that are temporary, we lament losing them, and we hanker for those things that we don't have. So that's where this Great Expectations, that was a little background of how we got into this topic. It's a principle of life, reality, that when you have expectations that aren't met, you're frustrated. So best to have expectations that match reality, because expectations that don't match reality, you're frustrated. angry, etc. An industry in America these days is the depression industry. And by industry I mean this is a medical doctor told me, Johns Hopkins University professor and practicing doctor said, the fastest growing field in medicine today is depression, in pharmaceuticals that deal with just managing the depression. So expectations that don't match reality is one of the things. It's not just America. One of the places I visited is China, and they consider it also an epidemic. Some fantastic number. If I'm not mistaken, the number is 100 million people are diagnosed as clinically depressed. That's a lot of people. Maybe I have the wrong number, but it's not a big number. So, expectations that aren't met, hankering and lamenting. So, the yoga of great expectations is to have expectations that match reality. There he is, the author, Charles Dickens. And anyone here has maybe read the story, the novel, Great Expectations? Here's a little summary of the novel. It starts down here, this young fellow in England named Pip, and Pip is born in a family where the mother is really bossy and cranky, and she's known as Mrs. Joe. And the father of Pip is blacksmith, a carpenter. Simple job. And so the story opens up meeting the family, and then this convict, criminal person, finds Pip, corners him in a graveyard, and persuades him to go, intimidates him to go back and steal from his own family, steal some food and steal a file. And after some time, from a distance, Pip and one of his friends sees the same person getting beat up, and he protects Pip and claims that he is the one that stole the file and the food. So he's, given a penalty. Later, it's a very complicated story, I'm only giving highlights. This is the brother-in-law of Pip who takes Pip to meet Miss Havershaw and an adopted daughter, Estelle. And Pip develops Cupid's arrow strikes his heart, and he has this woo thing for Estelle. He wants to be with Estelle. Little young fellow. And so Pip wants to win the heart of Estelle and becomes the apprentice of his brother-in-law in a blacksmith shop. Not a big noble job. And he understands there's some messenger that comes and tells Pip that you have a benefactor, a wealthy benefactor. He thinks it's this lady. And he's trying to, connect Pip to her adopted daughter. Long, complicated British type story. And so he goes to the city, he leaves behind his brother-in-law, and he tries to get wealth, and he has his great expectations. And then he somehow gets some wealth, and he does with his wealth some act of charity, and he feels that's what you're supposed to do with wealth. And long story, comes back, only to find out that the Miss Havershaw is not his benefactor, and that Estelle, dumps on him. he has some idea that they have this connection, romance, and there's no romance, and he's brokenhearted. And there's a whole series of other things. It turns out the benefactor is this person. He somehow went abroad, got wealth, came back, and was appreciative of Pip's good qualities, and so he generously helped him be wealthy and successful. He was amazed to find out who the benefactor really was. And it gets more complicated. But so, it's a story in the early 1800s, mid 1800s, of someone who wants to leave a simple life and become happy by getting wealth and going to the big city to get wealth, da-da-da-da-da. And the whole scene crashes on his head. There's a near contemporary story they made into a recent movie. The reason I know about this is I was flying to Singapore and the person next to me was watching the movie. So I couldn't hear what it was, but anyway. I took a nap in the middle of the whole thing because it was distracting. So it's same, a village countryside girl from France is visited, a family is visited by a city man from Paris. The city man from Paris wants to marry his friend's daughter. The daughter goes to Paris. She's a writer. She becomes the ghostwriter of books for her new husband. The new husband becomes a famous guy, and she becomes also famous. And then she, gets intoxicated with her success as a writer, and the whole happiness scene crumbles. She becomes kind of a fallen lady with a boyfriend, and gets spoiled. The Great Expectations story from a French perspective. Different, but it's an actual story. It's supposed to be true life story. And in this world, we all have some expectation or another, whether it's wealth, education, family, appreciation from others, stuff. We have our expectations. And the problem is expectations don't often meet reality. It's a bumpy ride. It's not smooth at all, although it starts out looking pretty attractive. In Bhagavad Gita, we find here's Dhritarashtra. For those of you that are not familiar, anybody not familiar with Bhagavad Gita? You're all familiar with Bhagavad Gita? That's great. Okay, not so familiar. Bhagavad Gita is part of a big epic, the history of greater India. Mahabharata is the title. And in that history, there were 3 brothers. The eldest of those 3 brothers was blind from birth. So the firstborn son becomes the king, but because he was blind from birth, he wasn't eligible to become king. So the next brother, Pandu, became the king. Long story, very, very involved. But Dhritarashtra was conspiring with his Duryodhana, his eldest son, and others, to become the king. He wanted his sons to become king if he couldn't become king. So a big series of events and ending up in a big battle. And while the battle is going on, here's Sanjaya, who had this mystic power he could see what was going on and hear what was going on from a distance within his heart. He had like a remote television in his heart, so to speak. So he was narrating to the king, or to the elder of the three brothers, Dhritarashtra, what was going on the battlefield. His expectation was he would become king, or at least vicariously enjoy the kingdom through his sons. It didn't happen. Reality was different than his expectation. His sons were all destroyed, and the kingdom went to the rightful heirs of the kingdom, the Pandavas. That's what the storyline behind Bhagavad Gita is. So, this is a picture of the lower modes of nature, ignorance, life in passion, and life in goodness, the residents of the heavenly planets. Here is a picture of a yogi who is trying to travel to other planets besides this one. So that is, let me leave behind this world of expectations, make it zero. And is that really, that's not really what the intention of Bhagavad Gita is, that's for sure. Make everything zero. Or become the enjoyer within the modes of nature. Here's an interesting message from Srimad Bhagavatam. Throughout the entire world, everyone is making big plans to adjust the miseries of the material world, and this is true at present, in the past, and in the future. We have it's natural, we have some plan, the goal is success, and there's things that are intermediate steps along the way in the path of success. And so we make our efforts to minimize the misery and increase the happiness. It's just natural. But the material world has been described in Bhagavad Gita as dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Dukkha means misery, and ashashvata means temporary. Whatever it is that we experience, it's here for a while and then it's gone. And while it's here, the expectation isn't met, and that means misery. We try to turn the material world into a place of happiness, not knowing that the material nature acts in her own ways. So that leads some people to try to become dull like a stone, or have no feelings, or have no highs and lows, no happiness and no sadness, etc. The Sochatina Kangsati. So it's not, the Bhagavad Gita's message is not become like that. So if it's neither this side nor that side, that is, strive for the temporary happiness and just trash the whole thing and abandon it. What's an expectation that matches reality? Now, the word yoga, the yoga of great expectations, yoga means linking or connecting. It comes from the dhatu, the verbal root yuj, meaning to connect or bring together. So, where this seat of consciousness, the spark of life within the body, mentioned at the beginning, that's who we are. And yoga is to connect that which we are with the source of everything. Let's look around the room, and there's about 25 of us here. or so, plus or minus. So each one of us is this little spark of life. According to this Vedic wisdom, it's very tiny. It's smaller than an atom. It's within an atom. It's 1/10,000th, it gives a dimension. 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair. So if you take a tip of a hair and divide it into 100 pieces, there's no instrument that can do that. And then take one of those 100 pieces and divide that into 100 pieces. That's how tiny that spark of life is. So there's 25 or so sparks, and that each of us are individual. Besides the body, that spark is individual. And, interestingly, within all 25 of us, there's Paramatma, or the Supreme Atma. That's the same one within all 25 of us, expanded within the heart of every living being. That's the unity that connects us all. And yoga means to connect with Paramatma. For certain audiences, it's just the place of higher consciousness. But for this audience, I can say, the individual self connecting with the Supreme Self, the Atma connecting with the Paramatma, and that Paramatma is expanded everywhere. It's one entity, one Supreme Entity within the heart of everyone, side by side with us, this little spark. That's what Bhagavad Gita teaches. And the yoga system, all the different types of yoga systems are to connect with that. Our consciousness with that Supreme Consciousness. And that's a spiritual expectation. And that spark of life that has its material expectations, in its purified state has spiritual expectations. Spiritual expectation is that this Paramatma is very kind, our dearmost friend. There's a really nice verse amongst many in Bhagavad Gita. The last verse, if you don't have a Bhagavad Gita with you, we have copies here. We'd like you to take one home, provided you kindly read it. So I'm just now giving you some points from Bhagavad Gita. The end of chapter 5, there's what's known as the peace formula, how you can be peaceful. Suradam Sarvadehinam, that the best friend, Suhrid, the best friend of all living entities. Krishna is very kind. We have friends. I went to high school, I went to college, and there are people that I went to high school and college with. I don't know. I mean, where they are they even alive? Sometimes people are friends, something happens between them, sometimes it's over money or whatever it is, and they're no longer friends. But Krishna is such a friend that even we turn away from him and turn our attention elsewhere, just reject Krishna. He never leaves us, he's within our heart. And it's just waiting and encouraging for us to turn our attention to him. So, that's a spiritual expectation. The kindness that Krishna has towards all. There's an image I like. It's a lotus with a reflection of the lotus. Some of you know from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15 speaks of a tree, a banyan tree, where the branches grow down and the root grows up. There's no such tree, except in a reflection. So just like this, here's a lotus where the top of the lotus is going down and the stem of the lotus is going up. So it's just a reflection. So this world, Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, the world that we're in, is a reflection of the spiritual reality. And yoga is to connect us with the spiritual reality. A difficulty in connecting with spiritual reality is we're attached to the reflection. I was thinking this just today, coming from, I was at Penn State last night. So coming, there was a flight, and there was lots of clouds. There were delays because of the clouds. So we're going along the runway, zoom, 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 and the plane lifts into the air. And now we're in the air, and a little bit above, there's cloud cover. And this is one of those little regional jets. They didn't fly really high. We're almost the whole time just flying in the clouds. So you look out the window, and what do you see? Clouds. You don't see the sky. So, question, are you in the sky when you're in an airplane, or you're in the clouds? Well, you're in, the clouds are in the sky and you're in the sky. Other jets keep going and you're up above the clouds. And down below are the clouds. But you're in the sky, or you're in the sky, or you're in the sky. So right now, we're identifying with the reflection, the clouds, and not the sky, not the spiritual sky, not the place where that's actually who we are, this spark of life. And this spark of life is a spiritual entity that's part of this big spiritual reality that we're all part of. We're part of that spiritual energy. We belong to that. We don't belong to the temporary. And when you identify with who you really are, then this nasochati nakanksati, that 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that I was speaking about, neither hankering nor lamenting. That's a spiritual expectation. That's a real expectation that doesn't change. It doesn't waver and flicker and become distorted. It's the reality with a capital R. Little sharing. When I was at Penn State, one of the persons who attended the program was a reporter for the school newspaper. Nice fellow. And so we got into a conversation after. And he described to me that when he was in high school, one of his high school teachers taught him a process of meditation. American fellow. And, friendly, very nice, thoughtful person. The type of meditation that he had learned was following your breath. Maybe some of you have done this. I did this when I was in college also. Pranayama is a system of breath, goes along with asanas, is following your breath. And so the meditation process, he didn't give it a name, just follow your breath. And you do that, and one of the things that happens is your body becomes relaxed, or the stress that we're normally wired with kind of just leaves. But he's been doing this since high school. Now he's in college, and his explanation was that he doesn't find himself going further, and he had an expectation that it would lead him to beyond just lessening of distress and feeling relaxed and calm, inwardly, physically, emotionally. But he wanted something. He knew that there's something more. So then he asked me, how'd you get into this? So I just shared with him, as I'm sharing with you now. I knew that there was a higher reality. And I didn't know what it was. And I knew that I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it existed. I just had that ground conviction. And I wanted to, like, not just theoretically, but experience it. So of all the things, some of the meditation processes I was doing was similar to what he was doing. But then when I experienced this mantra meditation, using this example of flying in the airplane, it takes you it takes you beyond feeling relaxed, or beyond the position of goodness, or beyond the position of the reflection of the reality. Instead of relating to the clouds in the sky, you relate to the spiritual reality that we're all part of. And this mantra meditation that you did at the very beginning, the musical one and the ones with beads, it connects you with that spiritual reality. And one of the symptoms is this one: no hankering, no lamentation. It doesn't happen instantly, but that's what that realm of spiritual reality is, that realm of Brahman, or realm of transcendence. There's an image of Prahlad. Some of you know who Prahlad is. He's the young boy who Lord Nrsingadev advented to protect from his father. So Prahlad offering these words to Lord Nrsingadev: "Oh, best of the great personalities, I'm not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I'm fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them." So that's a spiritual expectation. The spiritual expectation of wanting the true happiness that's natural for every soul, every spark of life, has that capacity, that potential. So wishing for that instead of the Pip's great expectations, or Colette's great expectations, or everyone else's great expectations. And it comes to this very simple position, this Paramatma that's within, giving us indication how to find that real happiness. We learn the art of saying yes. Here's Lord Chaitanya speaking about this chanting process. "I do not desire material wealth, materialistic followers, a beautiful wife, or fruitive activities described in flowery language. All I want, life after life, is unmotivated devotional service to you." So there's Lord Chaitanya taking us to the realm of being connected in yoga to the expectation of the heart's real longing, and that's love. In his, some of you may know George Harrison was a closet Krishna devotee. He used that term himself. And he wrote the foreword to a book about Krishna's life. And the foreword says, "Everyone, without exception in this world, has the desire to love and to be loved. And the difficulty is where to repose that tendency to love and be loved. And if we misplace that tendency, then we'll have a great expectation that's frustrated. And if we repose that loving propensity upon a perfect loving recipient of our love. It's a spiritual expectation, and that's the yoga of great expectation. It's a reality, it's an expectation that matches reality. So circle back around how this discussion started. Some interaction with a very serious practitioner of the Bhakti Yoga process had a conception that we're not supposed to have any expectations. And my response when they said like that is, we're not invited to become a stone where you have no expectations. Material expectation, or a false expectation, or a great expectation like Pip that happiness will come when you get the girl, when you get the money to get the girl, and the whole, illusory chase of happiness in London, and it crashes. All expectation doesn't match reality. He became broken, and then later the pieces got picked up. The story ends happy. Estelle has a change of heart, and she starts to like Pip. And they live happily ever after. But to get there was a really rough ride. So, and then the body of Pip and the body of Estelle will be gone, and there's another disappointment. Whatever you achieve that's of this temporary realm, it's dukkhalayam shashvatam, exactly as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So the yoga of expectations, great expectations, is to connect in yoga with the Paramatma, or connect with Krishna. And the best method is sound vibration, this mantra that we started with. And Bhagavad Gita's teachings are very, very helpful also to guide our practical activities of life to get there. So those are some thoughts. Yoga of great expectations. Can you hit the light switch in the back? And let's see if there's any thoughts to share on this or discussion from anyone.
Yeah, I would encourage all of you to make the best use of this time, and any questions that you might have on the topic, please feel free to ask.
The first question takes the longest, I guess, from experience. And then once there's one question, there's 5, there's 10. So I'm very patient.
And I guess I will start with one. Maharaj, what is the difference between material expectation and spiritual expectation?
Well, the difference between material and spiritual is very simple. Material means to see things as being disconnected from their source. Spiritual means to see things connected with their source. Or connected with Krishna. Because Krishna is that source of all things. Where are you going?
I'm connecting with my laptop. Okay, continue.
Okay, well don't do it yet because it'll be distracting, won't it?
Sorry, Maharaj.
He's getting ahead. The next thing. So, if I become that which is limited, and temporary is material. That which is eternal and fully conscious and by nature inherently possessing consciousness, that's spiritual. Simple definition.
And Maharaj, how can we move from, because all of us have expectations and it's predominantly material in nature.
Yeah.
So how can we cross that bridge?
By yoga, by connecting with who we really are. But when you connect with who you really are, it doesn't mean you trash everything else. Because everything else also comes from a source of emanation. You connect those something else's with the source of emanation. In a certain mood, in a mood of loving service. Family. It's natural. And seen separately from the source of emanation is material. Seen and acted upon in connection with the source of emanation, it serves as a spiritually elevating medium. Not a limiting and temporary and consciousness covering medium. Or, your college education. It's temporary. It's limited and it's temporary. Connect that limited and temporary with a consciousness, that's us, the consciousness of being in service to the source of everything. And that's not present in this nice University of Bridgeport sign. That's not one of the departments of knowledge that you're encouraged to become proficient in. So that's what Bhagavad Gita's message is. Become proficient in that, and then connect that with the source of emanation. To live a life in devotion, cultivate a life in devotion to the source of everything. That's yoga. Bhakti yoga, specifically. And the beginning of that Bhakti yoga consciousness is sound, spiritual sound. Starting with the mantra, which we did already at the beginning. Bhagavad Gita's message, which is also spiritual sound. Put the two together, and you have a heart that becomes cleansed, practical sense of how to conduct your activities in this world of the temporary in such a way that's consciousness elevating. Career, family, stuff, and how to interact with stuff. I've got a computer. That's stuff. And how to interact with it in such a way it's consciousness elevating and used in service to Krishna and not otherwise. That's something that's within, or if it's not within, then it's going to get used in some other way. And then it's binding, it's karma that binds and covers our original consciousness. So it's learning the art of connecting through yoga with Paramatma, with the source of everything, our dearmost friend. Anyone?
Maharaj, she has a question.
I teach yoga here.
You teach yoga?
I teach yoga here.
You teach yoga?
I do.
Fantastic.
I have 5 yoga certifications.
Wow.
I teach yoga here at the wellness group. I teach on Mondays and Saturdays.
Uh-huh.
And me and my 2 friends here are all yoga teachers. And we are also reading the Bhagavad Gita.
In the yoga class or on your own?
Well, for our 300-hour teacher training, we've already finished our 200-hour teacher training. So we're in our 300-hour teacher training right now.
Are you the teacher trainer?
No, no.
They say you have 5 certifications.
Yeah, an open level vinyasa, yin, nidra, kids yoga, and ashtanga.
Ashtanga. Okay, so that's chapter 6.
From Mysore and Batavi Joyce.
Okay.
Reading a few of Iyengar's books too.
I know somebody that was personally trained by him. Yeah. And before he left this world, right? Before he left this world, he entrusted this individual the whole of mainland China as their field to teach Iyengar yoga. Big field.
Yeah, he started with in Mysore, India. And I know his grandson, Shara, does it as well. One of my yoga teachers goes down like once a year. He goes down to Mysore and he practices with Shara. He goes down there once a month.
Once a month?
No, I'm sorry,
Once
once
a
a year.
year.
Yeah, once a year he goes for a month.
A whole month. Okay. Have you been?
No, I haven't, no.
One day.
Yeah, I hope so.
And you're taking the classes here in Bridgeport?
No, I teach yoga here on Mondays. It's
But
the
you're this
Western
teacher
Wellness.
training.
Oh, yeah, that's in Stratford, yeah. Me and Alana and Thomas all do it. We've all finished our 200-hour teacher training, and now we're doing 300 hours of teacher training. So we'll have 500 hours altogether between of us.
You'll be a well-taught teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
How long have you been teaching yoga?
5 years.
And your friend?
I haven't
You're
started
just getting
teaching
started.
regularly yet. Yeah, just getting started. Play with kids yoga.
I've been teaching about 5 as well.
Uh-huh. You're pretty young for having been taught teaching yoga.
Thomas is also a massage therapist,
Yeah, I'm
too.
definitely pretty young. Yeah. Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 36.
36.
Yeah.
I'm double your age. Almost, not quite.
And he's also a massage therapist
Uh-huh.
and Reiki master.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. A little bit of a combo.
Okay. Fantastic.
We just went through all of our mala beads last week when we got taught with our kids yoga. We went through our mala beads.
Fantastic. Well, you're like, if you do not have, I request, if you do not have already Bhagavad Gita, this version, please take a copy home with you as a gift.
Thank you.
We have gift copies.
Yeah, we have a book, but ours is much thinner, right? Ours is I think, darker.
Yeah, ours is
Yeah,
a lot
ours is, I
thinner,
think,
yeah.
like.
Well, this has
Oh,
commentary, and the commentary is done, I hope you all don't mind this little dialogue.
okay.
This commentary is from previous and previous and previous teachers. Acharyas is the Sanskrit word.
Mm.
Line of teachers in Sanskrit, and so resourcing those commentaries, putting in, language that's for people of today, but the same line of teaching going back thousands of years, presented in language that's intelligible for modern people. And it's translated in over 100 languages, the whole thing.
And we just got certified last week, and we just finished our 30 hours of teacher training for kids yoga. And we actually have to go for a whole year. All 3 of us have to go every other weekend for 10 hours. We do
Every other weekend for 10 hours.
Yeah, tomorrow's our weekend. Yeah, we do 6 hours on Saturday from 12 to 6, and 4 hours on Sunday from 12 to 4. Every other weekend for a year.
And she's new, she's like,
Yeah, I've done the training. It's just haven't started teaching regularly.
is it intimidating or you like it?
Yeah, I like
It's
it.
good,
Just
yeah.
getting started, I like the teaching.
Well, you're sandwiched in by 2 people that are,
I know. I'll learn from them.
She's lucky to have us here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, our schedule is actually advertised on UB Wellness, it's on the TVs
Oh.
here, and also on the Monday blast.
Well, I'm really glad to meet you, glad you could come. And now you got some extra set of beads with you in
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita. How about anybody else? Come on.
There's nobody can beat our story.
All right. So,